My name is Winifred Parker. I'm 62 years old, and I've spent my life giving everything to my daughter Sophia. So when that email arrived, uninviting me from the Paris wedding I'd helped pay for with my retirement savings, I felt like I'd been stabbed. If you want to be a part of it, you can watch through the Google Earth window, LOL, she wrote. I just responded, sure, enjoy your big day. What she never expected was what I did next. I'd love to know where you're watching from today. If you've ever had to stand up for yourself against someone you love, hit that like button and subscribe. Trust me, you'll want to see how quickly my daughter's attitude changed the very next morning. The day I became a mother was the most profound moment of my life. I was 32, had been married to my college sweetheart Jack for 5 years, and we'd been trying for a baby for nearly 3 of those. When Sophia finally arrived with her perfect little fingers and a head full of dark hair just like her father's, I made her a silent promise I would give her the world. Jack was a history professor at the local community college. We weren't wealthy by any measure, but we were comfortable in our modest 3-bedroom home in a good school district. I taught English at the high school, and between our 2 salaries, we had started building a decent life. We had simple dreams, summer vacations at the lake college funds for our children, maybe early retirement to travel a bit. But life has a way of rewriting your plans. When Sophia was 8 years old, Jack suffered a massive heart attack while jogging. He was gone before the ambulance even arrived. At 40, I became a widow and a single mother overnight. The first year after Jack's death passed in a fog. I functioned on autopilot, teaching my classes, making Sophia's lunches, helping with homework, attending parent-teacher conferences. But inside I was hollow. Sophia, though, became my reason to fully live again. Her grief was as raw as mine, but her resilience amazed me. She would crawl into my lap at night with one of Jack's old sweaters wrapped around her small shoulders and say, "Daddy would want us to be brave, right, Mum?" And so for her, I found my bravery again. Jack had left us with some life insurance money, not a fortune, but enough to keep us afloat. I put most of it away for Sophia's education, determined that she would have every opportunity possible. On my teacher's salary, I stretched every dollar. I clipped coupons, shopped sales, drove the same reliable Honda for 15 years. But when it came to anything that would benefit Sophia's future, I never hesitated. When her math teacher mentioned she showed unusual aptitude, I found money for a specialized tutor. When she expressed interest in the violin, I worked Saturday mornings at a local bookstore to afford lessons. When her public school began cutting arts and language programs due to budget constraints, I somehow managed the tuition for a small private academy with a strong academic reputation. During Sophia's high school years, we grew especially close. Weekend mornings were spent at kitchen table brunches, where she'd share stories about her friends, her crushes, her dreams. She wanted to work in international business, to travel the world, to experience different cultures. I encouraged every ambition. "The world is so much bigger than this town," I told her, echoing words Jack had often said to his students. "And you're meant to see all of it." For her 16th birthday, I surprised her with a summer study program in Spain, arranged through a teacher discount program, and paid for with nearly a year of careful saving. When she returned, tanned and speaking enthusiastic broken Spanish, the light in her eyes told me every overtime hour had been worth it. Sophia's hard work matched my sacrifices. She graduated as valedictorian and earned a partial scholarship to NYU's business school. The tuition gap was substantial, but I refinanced our home and told her not to worry. "Your job is to focus on your education," I said. "My job is to make sure you can." College transformed my daughter. The shy, bookish girl blossomed into a confident, ambitious young woman. She joined business clubs, secured competitive internships, studied abroad in London for a semester. With each success, I felt a deep sense of pride. This was what Jack and I had wanted for her. A life full of possibilities that extended far beyond our small town beginnings. After graduation, Sophia landed a position with an international financial consulting firm in New York. Her starting salary was nearly double what I made after 25 years of teaching. She insisted on taking me shopping to celebrate buying me an expensive handbag I would never have purchased for myself. "You deserve this, and so much more, Mum," she said as we lunched at a trendy Manhattan restaurant. "One day I'll really be able to pay you back for everything." I shook my head. "That was never the deal, sweetheart. Parents don't keep ledgers." But I began noticing subtle changes in Sophia as she climbed the corporate ladder. Her calls became less frequent, our conversations shorter. When she did visit, she spent much of the time on her phone, or talking about colleagues and clients whose lifestyles seemed from another universe. Weekend trips to the Hamptons, memberships, to exclusive clubs, vacation homes in exotic locations. For her 28th birthday, I flew to New York to surprise her. She seemed genuinely happy to see me, but uncomfortable, when her friends arrived at the upscale restaurant she'd chosen for dinner. I noticed how she tensed when I mentioned teaching, how she quickly changed the subject when one friend asked about her hometown. I felt like a relic from a past she was trying to outgrow. Still, I rationalized these moments as natural evolution. She was establishing her own identity, building her own life. That's what I had worked so hard to give her: independence and opportunities. When Sophia called to tell me she was dating Philippe Beaumont, her excitement was palpable. He's French, Mum. His family owns vineyards near Bordeaux. He works in our London office in international acquisitions. Over the next few months, Philippe became the center of her world. Their relationship progressed quickly, and when they visited me together for Thanksgiving, I could see why. He was undeniably charming, tall, impeccably dressed, with perfect manners, and that French accent that made everything sound sophisticated. He brought expensive wine and treated me with polite respect. "Your daughter is exceptional, Mrs. Parker," he told me as we sat in my living room. "We are quite fortunate to have found each other." I noticed he said, "Mrs. Parker," despite my repeated invitations to call me Winifred. There was a distance in his cordiality, a subtle barrier I couldn't quite breach. But he made Sophia glow with happiness, and that was what mattered most. As they left to return to New York, Sophia hugged me tightly. "He's the one, Mum," she whispered. "I just know it." I watched them drive away in their rented luxury car, feeling both happy for her and somehow left behind. My little girl was entering a world I had helped her reach, but could never truly belong to myself. The engagement announcement came 6 months later. Philippe had proposed during a weekend trip to Paris, presenting Sophia with a family heirloom ring that had belonged to his grandmother. The diamond was larger than anything I had ever worn, set in platinum, with smaller stones flanking it. "We're planning a spring wedding in Paris," Sophia explained during our video call. "Philippe's parents have connections with a beautiful historic venue near the Seine." Paris. I repeated, trying to match her excitement while mentally calculating what international travel would cost on my recently started retirement income. After 30 years of teaching, I had finally retired the previous summer. My pension was modest, but adequate for my simple needs. "That sounds wonderful, sweetheart." "Philippe's mother already has a list of planners we're interviewing next week," she continued. "Everything will be in French and English for the guests. The Beaumonts have so many friends across Europe who'll be attending." I nodded, smiling. "I'm sure it will be beautiful. Just let me know how I can help with the planning." There was a slight pause. "That's sweet, Mum. But Claudine, Philippe's mother, she does this kind of thing all the time. Their family hosts these elaborate charity galas, you know. She has connections with all the best vendors in Paris." "Of course," I said, maintaining my smile. But I'm still the mother of the bride. I'd love to be involved somehow. Absolutely, Sophia assured me. I'll keep you updated on everything. Those updates became increasingly infrequent as weeks passed. When I called to ask about dress shopping, Sophia explained that she was handling it in New York with her bridesmaids. When I suggested flying out to join them, there was an awkward pause. That's probably not necessary, Mum. We'll be going to some pretty exclusive ateliers that Claudine arranged. Very high-end, but I promise to send you pictures of everything I try on. The pictures never came. Instead, a month later, I received a text with a single photo of Sophia in a stunning gown that probably cost more than my annual pension. Found the one, the caption read. I swallowed my disappointment and replied with appropriate enthusiasm. This was her wedding after all, her special day. During a rare Sunday call, I broached the subject of finances. Sweetheart, I've been setting aside a bit each month since you graduated. I'd like to contribute to the wedding. It's not a fortune, but I have about 30,000 saved. There was a pause on the line. That's really generous, Mum, Sophia finally said, her tone brightening. Actually, that would be perfect for the floral arrangements. The quotes we've gotten are astronomical, but they're going to be absolutely stunning. Cascades of orchids and imported roses. No, thank you. No recognition of what that amount represented to me. Nearly a third of my entire retirement savings. Just immediate allocation to flowers that would wilt and be discarded within days. I mailed the check the following week anyway, with a card expressing my love and excitement for her special day. The only acknowledgement I received was a brief text. Got the check, thanks. Florist is thrilled we can move forward with the premium package. As the wedding date approached, I noticed a disturbing pattern in our interactions. Whenever we spoke via video call and Philippe's parents were present, Sophia's accent and mannerisms subtly shifted. Her typical New York cadence softened, adopting slight European inflections. She referenced private schools she'd never attended and family vacations we'd never taken. She spoke of her childhood as if we'd been comfortably upper middle class rather than a teacher and her daughter making do on one modest salary. During one particularly painful call, Claudine Beaumont discussed the rehearsal dinner she was planning at a Michelin-starred restaurant. "And what tradition does your family have for the night before Winifred?" she asked in her elegant accent. Before I could answer, Sophia interjected. "Mum's not really big on formal traditions. Small-town American weddings are much more casual, right, Mum?" I felt myself being positioned as the quaint, unsophisticated American, a narrative Sophia seemed increasingly comfortable promoting. The final straw came 3 months before the wedding. I'd planned to take a week off from my part-time library job, taken to supplement my retirement income, to help Sophia with any last-minute wedding details in New York. When I called to confirm the dates, she sounded hesitant. "Actually, Mum, I'm flying to Paris next week. Philippe's mother has arranged meetings with the venue coordinator and final tastings with the caterer. I'll be there until just before the wedding." "I could meet you there," I suggested, already knowing her response. "That's not necessary, it's all being handled. Philippe's family has been doing events like this for generations." The message was clear: I was not needed. More than that, I was not wanted. My daughter was crafting a new identity that had little room for her middle-class Midwestern mother, with her sensible shoes and teacher's pension. I hung up that night, feeling like a stranger to the child I had raised. The Sophia I knew, who had once proudly brought friends home to taste my blueberry pancakes, who had cried on my shoulder through her first heartbreak, who had called me every Sunday through college without fail. That Sophia seemed to be disappearing before my eyes. The email arrived on a Tuesday morning in early April, 6 weeks before the wedding. I was enjoying my second cup of coffee, scrolling through gardening websites and planning my spring planting. The familiar ping of my inbox didn't prepare me for how my life was about to change. The subject line read simply, "Wedding update, important." I clicked it open, expecting information about travel arrangements or perhaps schedule changes. Instead, I found myself staring at words that felt like physical blows. Mom. After a lot of consideration and talks with Philippe and his parents, we've made some changes to the wedding guest list and arrangements. The event has evolved into something more sophisticated and interconnected with Philippe's family business relationships than we initially planned. Many high-profile guests from the European wine industry and finance world will be attending. Given the exclusive nature of the venue and the specific social dynamics of these circles, we think it would be uncomfortable for you to attend in person. You wouldn't know, anyone wouldn't speak the language, and honestly, the cultural differences would make it awkward for everyone. Philippe's mother has expressed concerns about how different elements of the family would mesh at such a visible social event. I value our relationship, but this wedding has implications for Philippe's family business and our future. I hope you can understand this isn't personal, but a practical decision. If you want to be a part of it, you can watch through the Google Earth window, LOL. I'll make sure to send lots of pictures after. The good news is you won't have to worry about airfare or accommodations now. Let's plan a small celebration when we get back to the States. Love, Sophia. I read the email 3 times, each reading more painful than the last. My hands shook so badly I had to set my coffee mug down for fear of spilling it. The casual cruelty of the Google Earth window LOL comment felt like a knife twist. The pathetic suggestion of lots of pictures after, as if that could possibly compensate for missing my only child's wedding. The implication that I should be grateful to save money on travel expenses after I had contributed $30,000 to the very same event I was now being uninvited from. But worst of all was the revelation that I embarrassed her. That my presence, my very existence as her mother, was inconvenient to the narrative she was creating about herself. The nausea hit me first, a rolling wave of physical revulsion so strong I had to rush to the bathroom. Then came the tears, hot, angry, heartbroken tears that left me gasping for breath on the cold tile floor. How had we come to this? When had my smart, kind daughter transformed into someone who could dismiss me so callously? Had she always seen me this way, as an embarrassing reminder of her humble beginnings? Had all my sacrifices only served to create someone ashamed of the very person who made her success possible? I didn't respond immediately. I couldn't trust myself to write anything I wouldn't regret. Instead, I called my sister Margaret, my voice breaking as I tried to explain what had happened. She did what? Margaret's outrage was immediate and validating. After everything you've done for that girl, after you gave her money for that ridiculous wedding, tell her you want your check back immediately. I don't know what to do, Meg, I admitted. Part of me wants to call her and scream. Part of me is so hurt I can't even form words. Call Eleanor, Margaret advised, referring to my oldest friend. You need support right now, Win. This isn't something you should process alone. Eleanor's reaction mirrored Margaret's, though, with her characteristic analytical approach. This isn't about you, Winifred, she said firmly. This is about Sophia and her insecurities. She's trying to reinvent herself, and you're a reminder of who she really is. But what do I do? I asked the practical question, cutting through my emotional haze. What do you want to do? Eleanor countered. Not what would make Sophia happy, or what would cause the least conflict. What would make you respect yourself tomorrow and next year and 5 years from now? That question stayed with me through a sleepless night. I paced my small house, the home where I'd raised Sophia, where every room held memories. The kitchen where she'd learned to bake cookies using her grandmother's recipes. The living room where we'd built blanket forts during thunderstorms. The backyard where she'd practiced violin on summer evenings while I graded papers on the porch. I thought about the second job I'd taken to pay for her SAT prep courses, the vacation I'd cancelled when her braces unexpectedly needed adjustment, the retirement contributions I'd reduced so she could take that summer course in Spain, the countless small and large sacrifices that parents make without regret because they love their children beyond measure. And then I thought about being told I wasn't good enough to attend my own daughter's wedding, that I might embarrass her in front of her new sophisticated family, that I was a liability rather than the mother who had given everything to provide her with opportunities. By dawn, I knew what my response would be. It was brief, dignified, and revealed none of the devastation I felt. Sophia, I understand. Sure. Enjoy your big day. Love, Mom. I hit send and then turned off my phone. Whatever came next, I needed time to decide who Winifred Parker was going to be in this new, painful reality. The initial shock and hurt gradually transformed into something unexpected determination. As I sat in my quiet house that evening, phone still off, a realization crystallized. Staying home nursing my wounds while Sophia celebrated in Paris without a second thought for my feelings would change nothing. It would simply reinforce the dynamic that had led us here, my needs always coming second to hers. For the first time in decades, I allowed myself to imagine what I wanted separate from my identity as Sophia's mother. What would bring me joy? What would help me heal? What would allow me to look in the mirror and see someone who respected herself enough to choose happiness, even in the face of rejection? The answer came with surprising clarity. I would travel, not to Paris. I would never crash the wedding or create a scene that would only confirm Sophia's apparent opinion of me as embarrassing or unsophisticated. But why should I sit alone in my house, imagining the celebration happening without me? The next morning, I called Barbara, a former colleague who had retired to open a small travel agency. Winifred. What a lovely surprise, she greeted me warmly. Planning a summer trip? Actually, yes, I replied, surprised at the steadiness in my voice. I need to go somewhere in 6 weeks, international. Somewhere beautiful, but not Paris. There must have been something in my tone that discouraged questions, because Barbara simply said, "Let me see what we can find. Are you thinking beach, mountain, city? Exploring? Countryside?" I decided. Somewhere with history and beauty and wonderful food. Somewhere I can feel renewed. After an hour of discussion, a plan emerged. Barbara found reasonable flights to Florence using my accumulated credit card miles. From there, I would rent a small car and drive to a farmhouse in the Tuscan countryside near Montepulciano, a medieval hill town surrounded by vineyards and olive groves. It's not fancy, Barbara cautioned, but it's authentic. The owner is an elderly Italian woman who rents out a portion of her farmhouse. Previous clients have raved about her cooking and hospitality. You'll have privacy, but not isolation. The cost was substantial, but manageable, if I used part of my emergency fund. The symmetry wasn't lost on me, spending my own money on myself for once, creating my own memorable experience, while Sophia enjoyed the wedding my money had helped fund. Over the next days, I arranged for a retired neighbor to house sit and care for my cat. I renewed my long-expired passport on an expedited basis. I borrowed travel guides from the library and began learning basic Italian phrases. Each practical step felt like an affirmation. I was choosing myself perhaps for the first time since becoming a mother. I told only Margaret and Eleanor about my plans. Their responses were telling. "Good for you," Margaret said fiercely. "Show her you have a life that doesn't revolve around her whims." Eleanor was more reflective. "This trip isn't about Sophia, though, is it? It's about you rediscovering who you are beyond being her mother." She was right. As painful as Sophia's rejection had been, it had created a strange opening. Permission to prioritize my own joy without guilt. I found myself doing things I'd always postponed. I made an appointment with a stylist and got a modern haircut to replace the practical bob I'd worn for decades. I bought new clothes that made me feel attractive rather than simply appropriate. I started walking daily, building stamina for the hill towns I planned to explore. With each decision, I felt myself strengthening, becoming more solid. The hurt remained. It would for a long time. But alongside it grew something new, a sense of possibility of life expanding rather than contracting in the face of pain. Throughout these preparations, my phone remained conspicuously silent. After my brief reply, Sophia had not called, texted, or emailed. Whether she was relieved by my apparent acceptance or too busy with wedding details to notice my uncharacteristic brevity, I couldn't know. What mattered was that I was moving forward with my plans, while she moved forward with hers. The night before my departure, I packed my new suitcase with care. Comfortable walking shoes, a journal, my camera. The few phrases of Italian I'd managed to memorize, written on note cards. I felt both terrified and exhilarated. At 62, I was about to embark on my first solo international journey to a country where I didn't speak the language, where I would have to navigate everything alone. "You can do this, Winifred," I told my reflection in the bedroom mirror. "You've done harder things." It was true. I had buried my husband. I had raised a child alone. I had worked multiple jobs while maintaining a home and being present for my daughter. I had survived heartbreak. Italy would be a joy by comparison. The morning after I sent my brief reply, I woke to an unfamiliar silence. For the first time in decades, I had deliberately disconnected. My phone turned off, my laptop closed. The freedom was both unsettling and exhilarating. When I finally powered on my phone around noon, it immediately erupted with notifications. 5 missed calls from Sophia, 3 voicemails, 7 text messages, each increasingly urgent. The first voicemail captured her initial confusion. "Mum, it's me. I got your email. That's all you had to say. Call me back." The second, left an hour later, had an edge of annoyance. "Mum, seriously, I need to talk to you about the wedding arrangements. The planner is asking about family photos and processional order. Call me back as soon as you get this." The third, from early morning, revealed the first notes of panic. "Mum, why aren't you answering? This isn't like you. We need to discuss how we're handling this situation with Philippe's family. Call me immediately." The text messages followed a similar progression from casual, "Hey, got your email. Let's talk," to increasingly frantic, "Mom, this isn't funny. I need to talk to you now." I set the phone down, took a deep breath, and decided to respond with the same brevity she had shown me. "I'm fine. Just respecting your wishes about the wedding. Talk soon." Within seconds, my phone rang. Sophia's name flashed on the screen. I answered with deliberate calmness. "Hello, sweetheart." "Mom, finally, what is going on with you?" Her voice was high-stressed in a way I hadn't heard since her college finals. "Nothing's going on," I replied evenly. "I got your email about the wedding and I understand your decision." "You understand. That's it. No questions, no discussion. No, I don't know. Reaction? What reaction were you expecting, Sophia?" I kept my voice gentle but firm. There was a pause then. "I don't know. I thought you'd be upset or want to talk about it or something." "I was upset," I acknowledged. "But as you said, it's a practical decision, not personal." My echo of her own words clearly unsettled her. "Look, Mum, maybe I didn't explain well. It's just that Philippe's parents are concerned about impressions with their business associates and—" "You explained perfectly clearly," I interrupted softly. Your wedding has implications for Philippe's family business and your future. I understand priorities. That makes it sound so cold. Does it? I'm simply repeating what you wrote. Another long pause. The thing is, Philippe's mother has been asking about the mother of the bride traditions. There's a specific role for you in the ceremony program, and I thought I wasn't invited to attend in person. I said, the confusion genuine. Well, yes, but we still need to list you in the program, and the wedding planner is asking how we want to handle family photos without you there. It's creating some awkward questions. And there it was, the real reason for her call. Not concern for my feelings, but concern for appearances and explanations to Philippe's family. I'm sure you'll figure something out, I said. You've always been resourceful. Mom. Frustration cracked through her voice. Can you be serious for a minute? This is important. Yes, it is important, I agreed. Your wedding day should be exactly as you want it. You've made your wishes clear and I'm respecting them. But what are you going to do? Just sit at home alone while I get married? The question revealed so much about how she viewed me. As someone with no life, no options, no identity beyond being her mother. It strengthened my resolve about the decision I'd made. I'll be fine, Sophia. Don't worry about me. This pattern continued over the following days. Sophia would call increasingly agitated, trying to extract details about my plans or feelings. I remained polite but uninformative, refusing to engage in emotional negotiations or provide reassurances that would make her feel better about uninviting me. Philippe's parents apparently began asking more pointed questions about my absence. According to Sophia's increasingly frantic calls, they found it highly unusual and concerning that the mother of the bride wouldn't attend her daughter's wedding. What would people think? How would they explain it? Just tell them I'm ill, I suggested during one particularly tense call. I can't lie, Mum. Then tell them the truth, that I wasn't invited. I can't say that either. It makes us look terrible. Us, I noted. Not you or Philippe specifically, but us, including his parents, who apparently had input into this decision. Sophia's voice dropped to a near whisper. Philippe's mother might have suggested it initially, but I agreed it made sense. The wedding has evolved into something so elaborate. You'd be uncomfortable. Perhaps, I conceded. But that would have been my discomfort to manage, not yours to prevent by excluding me entirely. 3 days before my scheduled departure for Italy, Sophia called one last time. Her voice had lost its edge of frustration, and instead sounded small, almost childlike. Mum, please. Tell me what you're thinking. You've never been like this before. Like what exactly? So distant, so unwilling to make this easier for everyone. I considered my response carefully. Sophia, for 30 years I've put your needs first. I've supported your dreams, celebrated your successes, and loved you without condition. But this situation has shown me something important. That relationship cannot be one-sided forever. What are you saying? I'm saying that I respect your decision about your wedding, but I've also made decision about how I'm responding to that exclusion. Decision that prioritize my well-being for once. Are you coming to Paris? Hope flickered in her voice. No, Sophia. I'm not coming to Paris. You made it clear I'm not welcome at your wedding and I would never intrude where I'm not wanted. Then what? What are you doing? Why won't you tell me? Because my plans are my own, just as your wedding has become your own. I'll be in touch after your honeymoon. The stunned silence on the other end of the line told me she had never considered that I might have boundaries, that I might choose my dignity over her convenience. It was a necessary revelation for us both. The next morning, I turned off my phone, completely left it on my kitchen counter, and drove to the airport with a lighter heart than I'd felt in weeks. As my plane lifted off American soil and banked east toward a new adventure, I felt a strange mixture of grief and liberation. My daughter was getting married without me, a pain I would always carry. But I was also flying towards something just for myself, a choice that honored the woman I was beyond motherhood. My arrival in Florence felt like stepping into another world. The airport was chaotic, the signs unfamiliar, the rapid Italian surrounding me both musical and completely incomprehensible. For a moment, panic fluttered in my chest. What had I been thinking, coming here alone? Then I remembered the countless challenges I'd already faced in life and straightened my shoulders. I'd figure this out too. The rental car process was confusing, but eventually successful. Armed with a detailed map and my rudimentary Italian phrases, I navigated out of the city and toward the rolling hills of Tuscany. As urban sprawl gave way to cypress-lined roads and ancient stone farmhouses, something inside me began to unfurl. My accommodation, Casa Olivia, was exactly as Barbara had described, a 300-year-old stone farmhouse perched on a hillside overlooking vineyards and olive groves. My hostess, Signora Ricci, was a sprightly woman in her 70s who spoke limited English but communicated effectively through enthusiastic gestures and warm smiles. "Signora Winifred Benvenuta," she greeted me, taking my hands in hers. "You come alone. Very brave. Very good." She showed me to my quarters, a simple but charming apartment with terracotta floors, wooden beams, and windows that framed views so beautiful they seemed unreal. As she departed, she pointed to her watch. "Dinner 7. You come eat with me, yes." I had planned to find a restaurant in town, to ease into social interaction gradually, but her invitation was too genuine to decline. "Sì, grazie," I replied, using one of my few Italian phrases. Her delighted smile at my attempt made me feel for the first time in months like I had done something right. Alone in my apartment, I unpacked slowly, arranging my new clothes in the ancient wardrobe, placing my toiletries in the updated but still charmingly rustic bathroom. It struck me that no one in the world knew exactly where I was at this moment. The thought was both terrifying and exhilarating. Dinner with Signora Ricci was a revelation. She served simple food, pasta with fresh tomatoes and basil from her garden-grilled vegetables, local cheese bread, still warm from baking, and wine from a neighboring vineyard. But the flavors were extraordinary, vibrant, and honest in a way that made me realize how pallid my everyday meals at home had become. "You eat like bird in America?" she asked, watching me savor each bite with evident approval. "Here you eat like Italian. Is better." Despite the language barrier, she drew my story out of me in pieces, that I was a retired teacher, a widow, a mother. I didn't mention the wedding or why I was traveling alone. Some pain was too complex for my limited Italian or her limited English. The next morning, I woke to sunlight streaming through wooden shutters and the distant sound of church bells. For a moment, I forgot where I was, reaching instinctively for my phone to check messages. Then I remembered. My phone was an ocean away, and today my daughter would be having her wedding rehearsal in Paris. The twinge of sadness was sharp, but brief. Today was mine to shape. After a breakfast of strong coffee and freshly baked bread with Signora Ricci's homemade jam, I drove into Montepulciano. The medieval town was built on a ridge, its narrow streets winding upward to a central piazza. I parked outside the walls and entered through an ancient gate, immediately enchanted by the cobblestone paths and buildings the color of honey and rust. Lunch alone at a small trattoria initially felt awkward. I sat at my table, self-consciously certain everyone was wondering about the solitary American woman of a certain age. but as I watched other diners, I realized no one was paying me any particular attention. The waiter treated me with the same courteous efficiency he showed everyone else, recommending a local specialty, peachy pasta with ragu, and a glass of vino nobile di Montepulciano. The simple act of ordering food I wanted eating at my own pace and observing the world around me without worrying about anyone else's needs or preferences felt unexpectedly profound. When had I last done anything solely for my own pleasure? That evening, Signora Ricci invited me to join her in her kitchen to prepare dinner. With patience and good humor, she showed me how to roll proper pasta, how to know when olive oil is hot enough without smoking, how to tell when garlic is perfectly golden. We communicated through gesture-broken phrases and the universal language of cooking. "You have good hands," she told me approvingly as I shaped pasta. "Teacher hands, careful but strong." The compliment brought unexpected tears to my eyes. When had anyone last noticed my hands, my skills me as a person, rather than just a role? The following day brought another revelation. A local winery offered tours, and I joined a small group of mostly European tourists. The guide, a young woman named Francesca, who spoke excellent English, explained the winemaking process as we walked among the vines. During the tasting that followed, I surprised myself by engaging in conversation with others, a German couple, a family from Sweden, two women from London. When they asked what brought me to Tuscany, I found myself saying simply, I wanted to experience beauty on my own terms. The older of the British women raised her glass to me. "Hear, hear. There's nothing quite like discovering who you are when no one's watching, is there?" That night, I checked my email on the farmhouse's shared computer. There were dozens of messages from Sophia, increasingly desperate as the wedding approached. The latest, sent just hours earlier, read, "Mom, it's the night before my wedding and I don't even know where you are. People keep asking about you. Philippe's parents think it's bizarre that you're not here. Please just call or text me. Tell me you're okay, at least." I stared at the screen for a long time before typing a brief response. "I'm fine. Thinking of you on your special day. Love, Mum." It was true as far as it went. I was thinking of her. But I was also thinking of myself, of the woman I was rediscovering day by day in this beautiful place. The day of Sophia's wedding dawned bright and clear in Tuscany. I knew from weather reports it would be similarly beautiful in Paris. As I sipped my morning coffee on the terrace, looking out over hills shimmering with dew, I allowed myself to imagine the scene across Europe, Sophia being helped into her elaborate gown, flowers being arranged, guests arriving at the historic venue. The sadness came, of course. No mother imagines missing her child's wedding day. But it was a clean sadness, unmarred by resentment or the humiliation of being visibly unwanted at the celebration. I had chosen a special activity for this day, a visit to a small medieval village called Pienza, famous for its Renaissance architecture and spectacular views of the Val d'Orcia. As I wandered its perfect streets, pausing in the main square where the cathedral stood against a backdrop of rolling hills and distant mountains, I felt a curious sense of peace descend. At the exact hour when I calculated Sophia would be walking down the aisle, I found myself at a panoramic viewpoint overlooking one of the most beautiful landscapes I had ever seen. The late afternoon sun bathed the scene in golden light cypress trees, casting long shadows across fields dotted with ancient farmhouses. "Bellissima," I whispered, meaning both the view and my daughter in her wedding gown across the miles. I stayed until sunset, watching the colors change from gold to pink to deepening blue, as stars began to appear in the darkening sky. I realized I was happier in this moment, more at peace with myself than I had been in years. The painful circumstances that had brought me here didn't diminish the genuine joy I'd discovered. As I drove back to the farmhouse in darkness, navigating the winding roads carefully, I thought about how life rarely gives us what we expect, but sometimes offers unexpected gifts in the midst of disappointment. I had come to Italy to escape pain, but I was returning to Casa Olivia, having found something far more valuable: myself. When I returned home 2 weeks later, tanned and more relaxed than I'd been in decades, I found Sophia sitting on my front porch. Her honeymoon tan couldn't disguise the shadows under her eyes or the tension in her posture as she stood to face me. "You're back," she said, unnecessarily, her voice small. "I am." I unlocked my door, gesturing for her to follow me inside. The house felt different somehow, smaller, less significant than before. Or perhaps I was the one who had changed. In my kitchen, I set down my bags and turned to really look at my daughter. She was beautiful, as always, but something was off. The confident, polished woman who had been constructing a new identity was nowhere to be seen. Instead, she seemed younger, vulnerable in a way I hadn't witnessed since her adolescence. "Where were you?" she asked, an edge of accusation in her voice. "I called and texted for days before the wedding. I was worried sick." "I was in Italy," I said simply. "Tuscany, specifically." Her eyes widened. "Italy by yourself. Why?" "Because I needed to be somewhere beautiful, somewhere I could think, somewhere I wasn't an embarrassment to anyone." She flinched at my words. "Mum, about that email." "Would you like some tea?" I interrupted, moving to fill the kettle. The ritual gave me a moment to compose myself, to remember the strength and clarity I'd discovered across the ocean. We sat at my kitchen table, the same table where we'd shared countless meals and conversations throughout her childhood. The familiarity of the setting contrasted sharply with the strangeness of the moment. My newly married daughter looking lost, me feeling oddly centered despite everything. "The wedding was a disaster," Sophia finally said, staring into her tea. "Everyone kept asking where you were. Philippe's parents couldn't understand why the mother of the bride wasn't there. His mother kept introducing me to important guests, and then they'd immediately ask about you." I waited, saying nothing. "I tried to say you weren't feeling well, but they could tell something was off. Then Philippe's aunt, she's this brutally honest woman everyone's afraid of, she cornered me and demanded to know the truth." Sophia's voice cracked. When I stammered something about cultural differences, she just stared at me and said, "You uninvited your own mother, didn't you? How could you be so cruel?" Tears filled her eyes. She was right. I was cruel. And stupid. I let Philippe's mother convince me that you wouldn't fit in, that you'd feel uncomfortable, that it would be better for everyone. But she was really just embarrassed by your ordinary American mother, I finished for her. The teacher with her modest clothes and Midwestern accent. "I'm so ashamed," Sophia whispered. "Not of you, never of you, of myself, of how easily I betrayed the person who has always been there for me." I took a sip of tea, letting her words sink in. Part of me wanted to immediately comfort her, to say everything was fine, to fall back into my familiar pattern of putting her feelings first. But the woman who had watched the sunset over Tuscan hills knew better now. "What happened after the ceremony?" I asked instead. It was tense. Everyone was whispering. Philippe was angry with me for creating a situation that embarrassed his family. His mother was cold. The reception felt like a performance where everyone was just going through the motions. She looked up, her eyes red-rimmed. And all I could think about was you alone on what should have been one of the happiest days we shared. "I wasn't alone," I said quietly. "I was standing on a hilltop in one of the most beautiful places in the world, watching the sunset and feeling more at peace than I have in years." Confusion crossed her face. "You weren't devastated?" "I was devastated when I got your email," I corrected her. I was hurt beyond words that my daughter could dismiss me so casually after everything we've been through together. But then I made a choice. I could either sit here feeling rejected, or I could use the opportunity to remember who I am beyond being your mother. I don't understand. For 30 years, Sophia, my identity has been wrapped up in being your mother. Every decision, every sacrifice, every joy centered around you, and that was a choice I made gladly. But somewhere along the way, especially these last few years, our relationship became unbalanced. You began to see me as an extension of yourself, something to be managed or hidden, depending on how it reflected on you, rather than as a complete person with my own dignity and worth. She started to protest, but I held up my hand. Let me finish. When you uninvited me from your wedding, you didn't just hurt me, you forced me to confront how I had enabled this dynamic, how I had always prioritized your comfort over my own needs, how I had taught you unintentionally that my feelings mattered less than yours. That's not true, she whispered. Isn't it? Would you ever have written that email if you truly valued my feelings as equal to yours? If you respected me as a complete person, rather than just a role in your life? Tears spilled down her cheeks. I was wrong. So wrong. I don't know how to fix this. It starts with seeing me clearly, I said gently. Not as an embarrassing reminder of your past or a problem to be managed, but as Winifred Parker, a woman with her own life, her own dreams, her own worth, independent of her relationship to you. I see you, Mum, she said, reaching for my hand across the table. I really do, and I'm so, so sorry. I squeezed her hand, but didn't rush to assure her that everything was forgiven. That would come with time, with actions that matched her words, with a rebuilt relationship founded on mutual respect, rather than just the biological bond between mother and child. How's Philippe? I asked instead. A shadow crossed her face. We're working through things. The wedding showed me sides of him, of his family, that I hadn't seen before. Or maybe I just hadn't wanted to see. I nodded, unsurprised. Relationships have a way of revealing themselves under pressure. He wants to make it work, she continued. We both do, but things need to change. Yes, I agreed, thinking of my own journey. Things do need to change. In the weeks and months that followed, Sophia and I began the delicate work of rebuilding our relationship. It wasn't easy or linear. There were difficult conversation moments when old patterns threatened to reassert themselves, times when the hurt felt fresh again. But there was also a new honesty between us, a willingness to see and be seen that hadn't existed before. 1 year after the Paris wedding, Sophia and Philippe held a small vow renewal ceremony in my backyard. It was nothing like the elaborate European affair, just close friends and family, simple food and flowers, genuine emotion rather than social performance. Philippe's parents declined to attend, but his aunt, the truth-teller who had confronted Sophia, came bringing warmth and humor to the gathering. As I watched my daughter and her husband reaffirm their commitment with words that spoke of growth and forgiveness, I reflected on the strange journey that had brought us to this moment. An email that had broken my heart had ultimately led to healing, not just of our relationship, but of my relationship with myself. The woman who had wandered Tuscan villages alone, who had discovered joy in her own company, who had chosen dignity over accommodation, she was still with me. She had taught me that love doesn't require erasure of self, that boundaries strengthen rather than weaken connections, that it's never too late to discover who you are beyond the roles you've played. Sophia caught my eye across the garden and smiled. a real smile that reached her eyes free of the anxious need for approval that had once characterized her interactions with me. I smiled back, feeling the warmth of genuine connection rather than the complicated tangle of unmet expectations and unspoken resentments that had defined our relationship for too long. Later, as guests departed and twilight settled over my garden, Sophia found me sitting alone on the porch swing. "Thank you," she said, simply settling beside me. "For what?" "For not giving up on me even when I deserved it. For showing me what real strength looks like. For teaching me that love sometimes means standing firm rather than always giving in." I put my arm around her, feeling the solid presence of my adult daughter, flawed and human and still learning just as I was. "We're both works in progress," I told her. "That's the beauty of it." As we sat watching fireflies emerge in the gathering dusk, I felt profound gratitude for the painful email that had forced me to Tuscany and forced my daughter to confront her own actions. Sometimes the deepest wounds lead to the most necessary healing. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with someone you love? How did you balance self-respect with compassion? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this journey resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more stories of growth and transformation. Share this with someone who might need to be reminded that it's never too late to rediscover yourself. Thank you for being part of this community where we can share our truths and find strength in each other's stories.